Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Steepleview Farm this beautiful spring day. I hope all of you survived the freeze last night. Oh my goodness, I'm telling you what, we spent most of the day yesterday really in just an emergency situation around here. We have a beautiful high tunnel which allows us to grow crops in the spring, but it's only one layer of plastic, which means it's not heated, and we had to find a way to maintain the heat on our plants last night. So a couple of different techniques were employed. We'll talk about those in a few minutes. I hope you all did okay covering up. We want to talk about a little bit about the difference between freeze and frost and what we need to do to protect ourselves in the event something like this happens again. But the best way to decide what to do for the future, we think, is to check the weather. But let's take a look at what they said last week was going to be the weather for this week. And there was the forecast that I put up last Saturday. Friday, May 8th, the low was going to be 39 degrees. Saturday, it was going to be 39 degrees. Well, as we now know, it got down to 27 degrees last night. Now, for those of you who are raising flowers, for those of you who are raising tender vegetables, 35 degrees is about all they can take. Tomatoes, for example, will die at 35 degrees. So it was very important for everybody to be on guard, on alert, looking for a way to protect their vegetation last night. And, we better look and see. Do we have to do that again tonight? Tonight, 41 degrees. Tomorrow night, 37. Monday, 36. Do you believe it? I don't know. I think if you've got stuff out there to protect your vegetation and protect your flowers, keep it handy is all I can say. I don't think there's any reason to put it away right now. Last week when I showed you the weather, we talked about how we were in the sweet spot. It was time to plant, time to get out there and go gardening. And according to the record books, we were past the last frost date and clearly past the last freeze date. Do you know that last night was the latest killing freeze in our area on record? I mean, I'm sure in the recorded history of weather forecasting and weather record keeping, we were at the latest date we've ever had a killing freeze. I got up this morning very early, wasn't sure what I was going to have to do, didn't know if I was going to have to run out with a bucket full of hot water and sit it underneath the tent I'd built over top of some of our vegetation. Didn't have to do that, but I did watch the weather, and it did begin to drop at about 4 o'clock in the morning. About 4 o'clock this morning, it started out right at freezing, and then it went down. The lowest it got was just around 27 degrees this morning, just before the sun came up. So, overnight, we did get into that killing zone. And we'll talk a little bit about what we can do to protect ourselves going forward. But not only did we check the weather, as we just did, looking ahead, little rain tomorrow. Too bad for Mother's Day. Maybe you'll have to make your plans for indoors. There's an 80% chance of precipitation. Then we've got some cooler weather coming up at the first of the week. But look at next weekend. Rain may be on the way, but the temperatures are going to be in the 80s. Summer weather, late spring weather is right around the corner, but that's not the only thing we use to plant and plan our gardens by. We also look at the Farmer's Almanac so that we can keep an eye on the moon phases. As I told you last week, they do make a difference, and we've seen it here. Good for all of you with Mother's Day plans this weekend. Today, not so good for planting. Tomorrow, Monday, those are good days for late beets, potatoes, onions, carrots, and other root crops. And at the beginning of the week, we're going to be back to taking care of killing pests and things of that sort, because those are barren days, but then we're back in the sweet spot. So keep an eye on the Farmer's Almanac. Keep an eye on that moon phase. When that moon's going from full moon down to dark of the moon, there's a period of time in there. It looks like it's coming up tomorrow where you can start planting some underground crops. I called around, put out some messages, asked folks how they did last night. Francis Crow up in Ohio said she got everything covered and saved most of everything. Ron from Lexington wrote and said he lost a few blooms, otherwise everything survived. And John here in Owen County said everything lived! ! I'm sure you're excited about that. Listen, folks, don't forget this video is recorded and it'll be up on our webpage here at Steepleview Farm for all of you to watch and share. I'd appreciate that. Along the way, while you're doing that, feel free to comment and feel free to send us any kind of messages that you'd like here at Steepleview Farm. And I have no idea why that just happened. We're going to go, hopefully, right back to this. That was supposed to be, that's not supposed to happen. How about that? This technology isn't working so well today. I had this issue the other night and wasn't really sure where it came from. And when I went through the process of setting it up today, I may have left something on from the other night. So apologize for that. Steepleviewfarm.com. That's our website. That was what I was going to put up on the screen. Steepleviewfarm.com. And if you have the opportunity and want to leave us a message, you can do that. There it is. Came up just like it was supposed to. Steepleviewfarm.com. Reach out to me with your gardening questions, farming questions, anything else that you might like to talk about, and always offer criticisms. We all want to get better on this show and make it more entertaining and more content rich for you. Today I want to talk a little bit about what you do to protect yourself in the event that there's a freeze or a frost, and I want to describe the difference. Some of you may know, and some of you might not. Last night or yesterday, I got a lot of emails and messages from people in a panic, wondering, what do I do? How do I possibly deal with this coming freeze? Can I go out and put a bed sheet over my flowers? Can I put a bed sheet over my hostas? Can I wrap my trees in bed sheets? Will that do? That is kind of frost protection. Frost is when the moisture in the air becomes condensation on the leaf surfaces. Just like you take and the best way to think about that is, think of one of those aluminum tumblers that you can make a cold drink in and fill it full of crushed ice. If you get condensation on the outside and the temperature of that aluminum is cold enough, you'll actually get frost build up on the outside of that aluminum tumbler. That's frost. That's what happens on a leaf surface. Dew settles on the leaf surface, moisture on the leaf surface, temperature briefly gets down to or very close to freezing, and a frost will form on the leaves. It can burn the leaves, certainly burn blooms, and cause problems. But along the way, frost is not as bad as a freeze. A freeze is a sustained period of time during which the temperatures are below freezing. Like last night, around 3 o'clock in the morning, temperatures fell below 32 degrees. And we're talking about the air temperature, and that's important. The air temperature fell below 32 degrees. It stayed there and got down to 26 or 27 degrees. That's a freezing temperature. And why is that more dangerous than a frost? It's more dangerous because now, think about trees and shrubbery and other plants. They have a lot of moisture in their stems. They have moisture in their leaves. And particularly trees, in the spring and the summer, there is sap that's moving up from the roots below ground through the vascular system of the tree, making its way all the way out into the branch tips and into the leaves. And that moisture, through the process of the sun hitting the chlorophyll in the leaves, creates sugars and carbohydrates that then flow back down and feed the roots. Now the tree, now the shrub, now the plant is full of moisture. In the autumn, that moisture all leaves. It all flows back down into the roots. And that moisture, that sap flow that goes back down into the roots, then means that the branches and the leaves don't have any moisture in them. They're pretty much dry. So when cold weather comes, there's no water in there to freeze. But in a plant, in a stem, in a trunk, in a leaf, the moisture that's in there in the spring and in the summertime, when it freezes, it actually forms little ice crystals that puncture the cell walls, and they deplete the plant of moisture, and it can kill the leaves. Literally last night, there was some concern in our area that we might have what would look like a false autumn. Trees could have lost their leaves. I don't see that outside today. In fact, I'm thrilled to report that our magnolia tree didn't lose a single bloom so far, and our dogwood tree is filled with blooms, and they all seem to be fine this morning. Well, why is that? What is the reason that we maybe saved some of that? And what is it that you can do to protect plants in a freeze versus a frost? In a frost, you can cover them with a bed sheet, a light covering. You can use a fabric covering that they sell at garden centers. They sell them at Lowe's. They sell them at Walmart. They come by a variety of different names. It's basically Agribon. It's a woven polyester fabric that's very thin. It allows water through, allows most of the sunlight through, allows air to flow in and out. But a light covering can protect plants from frost. A light covering won't do much to protect plants from freezing because the plants are exposed to the air temperature inside of that little dome of fabric. It's not just a matter of protecting it from the dew landing on the leaves and then frosting. Now we're talking about the air temperature actually freezing the moisture inside of the plant. The best thing to do, if it's going to work at all, in case of a freeze, is to take your plants, if possible, and cover them with something heavier. Just think about it. If you went outside on a night when the temperature was 26 degrees, would you be more comfortable under a blanket or a sleeping bag or under a bed sheet? If it's under a blanket or a sleeping bag, that's because it's trapping heat. Anything that traps the heat that's coming up out of the ground towards your plants is going to be better than a light covering to protect the moisture landing on the leaves. So we went out last night, actually yesterday, into the high tunnel, and we have metal hoops that we use out in the field, metal hoops, and we domed all of our plants in the high tunnel. Now don't forget, it's already under a layer of plastic that looks like a greenhouse. We domed all of our plants inside of the high tunnel with greenhouse plastic and sealed it tight to the ground. Why? Well, right now, the soil temperatures in this part of the country are 55 or 60 degrees. That means that under that dome, all night long, the thermal storage of solar energy that the ground had absorbed was being dissipated slowly as the night air closed in. And that warm air coming up past the plants, past the stems, past the leaves, didn't just flow out into the atmosphere of the greenhouse. It was trapped. So the idea, if you have a freeze coming, is to create an environment over your plants that traps the warm air coming up out of the soil so that you create this little cushion of warm air around your plants. For those of you who did that, for those of you who covered up, you'll see a great benefit, I think, today. We were thrilled to go out this morning and take a look, and we've got green beans that are up about that tall, and I thought, they just don't make it under about 35 degrees. They're kind of like tomato plants, but they made it. We domed them in time. The soil was warm enough, plenty of moisture coming up. So I hope that you guys had that kind of experience, and I hope that along the way with that kind of experience, you all ended up with saving your flowers and your tender vegetables. So now looking ahead, we're ready to go, right? We're all anxious to get out and get going again. Are we past the freeze? I don't know. Weathermen are the only people who get paid to be wrong all the time, aren't they? So we can tell you what the weather is, but we can't tell you whether or not it's going to be true come tomorrow. We can just tell you what it is. Right now, I would say, since last night was the latest freeze in our area, You might be safe, but don't put away those frost and freeze protections that you've got out there. Well, while we're talking about what to plant, we had a question come in. What kind of seeds do we use here at Steepleview Farm, and what do we grow? And I talked about my green beans, so I want to show you. I shop for most of my seeds at a place called Johnny's Seeds, johnnyseeds.com. It's not a plug, not a commercial. I don't get anything for that. johnnyseeds.com not only has a great selection of seeds, but they have an incredible customer service department. Any questions you might have, they'll spend a considerable amount of time talking with you on the phone. But this is the organic green bean that we grow here at Steepleview Farm called Provider. It is planted earlier than other beans because it germinates well in cool soils. So that tells you why I thought it was safe to put it out. It's going to germinate earlier. It does well in cool soils, but it doesn't say anything about on their information about growing when it freezes. So Provider beans are my go-to bean for growing green beans here at Steepleview Farm. Nice, straight beans, great pod flavor, really neat looking beans inside, and an unusual aspect of Provider beans, the bean seeds are black. Yeah, when you get them in the bag, they're black, but they come out white in the pod. So Provider is the bean that we like to use here at Steepleview Farm. Now, in our greenhouse, we grow a whole bunch of lettuces. We also grow some in the field. My favorite mix for lettuce, and for those of you who are customers of Steepleview Farm that come here for your produce all season long, those of you who've joined as farm partners, welcome, and thank you so much for being a part of what we do. You've been getting that particular mix in your salads so far this summer. 5-star greenhouse lettuce. It has a great look to it. Green oak leaf, red romaine, green leaf, and red leaf lettuces. Yes, they do change the varieties up a little bit, but it's just got a lot of loft to it. It's got a lot of color to it. It's got a lot of texture to it, and a tremendous amount of flavor. That's our go-to. That is our go-to lettuce in the greenhouse, and we plant it in the field as well. Now, those of you who've been coming have been enjoying baby leaf spinach. You know, there are a lot of kinds of spinach out there. Some spinaches have big leaves to them that are kind of wilted looking. I tend to like this smooth spinach. It germinates quickly. It does well in colder temperatures. It is very cold hardy, and it's a delicious spinach. And man, is it ever a producer. I mean, I've got to tell you, we have already cut, I think we have cut our spinach beds, as best I can tell, we have cut our spinach beds already 5 times, and they continue to produce. So it's a nice thing about spinach. Plant it, cut it when it's a baby leaf, come back 3 days later, and it's a baby leaf again. Spinach is a great crop, and it's a great early season crop. Now, I also like to plant red Russian kale. Now, if you are not a kale fan, and let me say to you that many people don't like kale or think they don't like kale, I wouldn't say that everybody who thinks they don't like kale have ever had red Russian kale. When you think of kale, you may think of that slimy stuff in a can. Or you might think of those great big black leaves you see laying at the grocery store. This is salad kale. This is cut when it's a small leaf. The smaller the leaf, the tastier. The first set of leaves you cut are green. Then they turn kind of a reddish color. For those of you who maybe have been to Core Life and had lunch, kale is in their salads. It gives your salad mix a really nice crunch. Some people eat it as a salad. I like to throw 5 or 6 handfuls of the lettuce into a bowl and add maybe 1 handful or 2 of red Russian kale. That, I think, adds a nice crunch to the salad. Now, for those of you who are arugula fans, let me just tell you, arugula is a spicy kind of green. It comes in all different shapes. There are the kinds of leaves that are kind of frilly looking. They almost look like feathers or fronds of some sort. The more solid leaves, there are bigger leaves, smaller leaves. I happen to like Esme arugula. I like the look of the leaf. It grows really well It has a rounder leaf to it. It's very attractive, and it really adds a great flavor to your salads. Now, my son and daughter-in-law love arugula so much that we go to their house back before the shutdown. We had arugula salads, mostly arugula, just a delicious salad green. So I would highly encourage you to think about growing some arugula in your garden this year. And if you go to Johnny's, one of my favorites is Esme. And I think if you find Esme arugula, I think you're going to be very pleased with what you get in the way of the flavor in your salads. Now, here's something else. People hear about greens, and we do grow greens here at Steepleview Farm. We add greens to our salad mixes, and the greens we use are called Elegance Greens Mix. Now, I call it Asian greens because it has pak choy, red mustard, mizuna, and leaf broccoli. These are just interesting little flavors that get added into your salad. If you're going to grow salads in your garden, you know, in the old days, people always used black-seeded Simpson. And the only thing they did with lettuce was wilt it and pour bacon drippings and sugar over it. That's a delicious way to eat a salad. I'm not saying that you shouldn't grow salad for that purpose, but if you're going to grow salad and you're going to grow greens and you're going to grow things in your garden that are going to make a delicious meal in and of themselves, let me just tell you, you mix some of our Elegance Greens mix, some of our seaside spinach, red Russian kale, Esme arugula, and these Asian greens, and my goodness, do you have a great flavor profile. And for those of you today who are interested, we're here. It's a sunny day. It's a beautiful day at Steepleview Farm. And I think you know, and I think everybody knows that this is a very special weekend. And I'd like to say happy Mother's Day to all of the ladies out there, to my sisters, to my daughter-in-laws, to my wife, and to all the women in the world who have been just an inspiration to all of us in our lives from the time we were children to now, who provide something special themselves in this world to everybody who comes in contact with them. So this weekend, if you've got a chance, come on down to Steepleview Farm. Let me put together a bag of some of these greens for you. Take them home and give them to Mom and help her enjoy Mother's Day. Thanks, guys. We'll end the show now. Happy Mother's Day, everybody. See you next week.